Every time you breathe a breath of air, take a bite of an apple, write with a pencil, take a drink of water, or pick a flower from a garden, you're using something from the earth. A natural resource is anything people take from the environment and use. Air, water, living things, and materials inside the earth that we use are all examples of natural resources. During the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at the wide range of natural resources. We'll investigate how resources are valuable to us and how we use them every day. And we'll also see why it's so important to protect Earth's natural resources. Almost everything we eat, see, and touch is a natural resource. As we mentioned, things we use from the natural environment are natural resources. It's easy to think of things such as trees, grass, and the water in this river as natural resources because they come directly from nature. Things we eat, such as fruits and vegetables, are also natural resources. The water we drink is a natural resource, and energy sources such as oil, wood, and coal are natural resources. You decide. Are the following things natural resources? A chair, a sweater, and an aluminum can. You wouldn't see a chair, sweater, or aluminum can naturally occurring in nature. But all these things are made from natural sources. The chair is made from the wood of trees. The sweater is made from the wool of sheep. And the aluminum can is made from aluminum mined from the Earth's surface. So, as you can see, almost everything, from the clothes we wear, to the food we eat, to the energy used to heat and cool our homes, is derived from natural resources. Needless to say, without natural resources, we couldn't survive. Scientists divide natural resources into two major groups: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. A non-renewable resource cannot be replaced by nature. Minerals such as copper, iron, and rocks such as marble are non-renewable resources. Once they're taken from the earth, they cannot be quickly replaced through Earth's natural processes. We'll talk more about non-renewable resources in a few minutes, but first, let's discuss renewable resources. Renewable resources can be replaced by nature. Renewable resources are essentially inexhaustible or can be replaced relatively rapidly. You decide. Is wind a renewable or non-renewable resource? Wind is a renewable resource since it cannot be exhausted or used up. Wind turbines take advantage of this renewable resource to produce electricity. Energy from the sun, referred to as solar energy, is another example of a renewable resource. Solar panels convert the sun's energy to electricity. Just because a resource is renewable doesn't mean that it can't be used up. In some cases, renewable resources are used up so quickly they become scarce. Such is the case with the American buffalo, which has been hunted to near extinction. As you know, wood used in pencils, furniture, and in building materials is processed from trees. Given enough time, trees harvested to make wood products can be replaced with new trees that will grow over time. But if trees are cut down at a rate that's faster than they can regrow, problems occur. The resource becomes scarce and can't meet the demands of society. This has occurred in many parts of the world and has forced people to seek timber in more remote and fragile areas, such as rainforests. Fish are another example of a renewable resource. But when fish populations are overfished, they become depleted, which means they can't regenerate quickly enough, and the fish becomes scarce. One of the big challenges we face today is being careful not to overuse many of the Earth's renewable resources. If you live in a cold climate that has severe winter weather, or even if you live in a moderate climate that has cool winters, you know the importance of heating your home. There are several sources of heat energy. Natural gas, propane, oil, and wood are some of the most common. You compare. Which of these is a renewable natural resource? Wood is a renewable resource, which can be harvested from trees. New trees can be replanted and grow with time. Natural gas, propane, and oil, on the other hand, are non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources cannot be replaced by nature. Once non-renewable resources are gone, they're gone forever, or they take so long to regenerate, they're considered to be non-renewable. Energy sources such as gasoline, oil, natural gas, and coal are collectively referred to as fossil fuels. Fossil fuels form in the earth from the ancient remains of decayed plants, animals, or other once living things. Once processed, fossil fuels are burned as energy sources. While in theory fossil fuels can be recreated by nature, this process takes hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. Therefore, once a fossil fuel is burned, it's gone as a useful source of energy. Other examples of non-renewable natural resources include minerals. The iron used to produce the steel in this car, the copper in these pipes, and the aluminum in this can are all minerals which we use regularly in our day-to-day lives. It's somewhat discouraging to think that we're rapidly using up our non-renewable resources. But there are some ways these resources can be used again. Perhaps you live in a place where you can receive money for returning empty cans and bottles. Or maybe when you take your trash out, you place items such as newspapers, cans, and bottles in separate containers from the rest of your garbage. What happens to these items? These items are recycled. Recycling is the process of collecting and reprocessing materials into new products that can be used again. Newspapers, glass, plastic, some metals, and many other things made from natural resources can be recycled. Believe it or not, in some cases, even sewer water can now be recycled through special cleaning systems and then used for purposes such as irrigation of crops. You decide. What's the benefit of recycling? Recycling enables natural resources to be used over and over again, so that new resources do not have to be taken from the earth. Recycling does have some downfalls, in that it consumes energy and can be expensive. There are some cases where things made from natural resources can simply be reused. Reuse involves using a resource over and over again in its same form. Wood from this old building, for example, can be reused in creating a new building. Engine parts from old junk cars are often used to replace parts in newer cars. Recycling and reusing enables valuable materials from the earth to last for many years to come. "100 to 200 years ago, certain types of lumber, like the wooden boards used to build this old barn, were relatively inexpensive compared to today. One of the reasons for the jump in price is because certain types of lumber have become scarce. Certain types of wood, such as redwoods from the Pacific coast, are extremely costly because they're so scarce. The number of redwood trees being harvested today is minimal compared to 100 years earlier. A similar phenomenon is occurring with oil today. Oil production is leveling off and soon will begin to decline. Unless easily accessible resources of oil are located, the cost of this resource will undoubtedly escalate. If the cost of a natural resource becomes extremely high, it will not be widely used. Sometimes, if a natural resource becomes scarce or too expensive, alternative resources are found. For example, 30 to 40 years ago, cars and trucks were made mostly of steel. But over time, these vehicles have been made of lighter, less expensive materials, such as aluminum and plastic. The lighter materials also help improve fuel efficiency and thus conserve gasoline. You may have heard the word synthetics before. The word synthetic means things which are man-made or manufactured. You're probably wearing a piece of synthetic clothing, or perhaps you're sitting at a synthetic desk or chair. Synthetics, while still made from some natural resource, in many cases serve as an economically or environmentally sound alternative to natural resources. Plastics are a broad group of synthetics used in everything from bottles to computer cases to boats. There are hundreds of different kinds of plastics, many of which serve as alternatives to natural resources. The siding of this home may look like wood, but it's actually an alternative to wood called vinyl siding. It provides the advantage of not needing to be painted. While many alternatives to natural resources do have their advantages, they also have their own set of drawbacks. Fleece, for example, made from recycled plastics, is quite warm, but it can be expensive. Or perhaps in some cases, alternative resources may pose a threat to the environment, as is the case with many plastics if not disposed of properly. The cows grazing in this meadow are eating the grass at a slower rate than the grass can regrow. But what would happen if more cows were allowed to graze on this meadow, until there were so many cows that they ate the grass faster than the grass could grow? Eventually, the grass would be overgrazed and the cows would starve. Resource sustainability involves utilizing natural resources so that they're not overused or damaged for the long term. There are many variables involved in reaching sustainability, including dealing with overpopulation, overconsumption of resources, distribution of resources, and pollution control, to name just a few. During the past few minutes, we've explored many of the different facets of natural resources. We describe natural resources as things we take from the environment and use. Natural resources are commonly broken down into two groups: renewable or non-renewable. Fish and trees are examples of renewable natural resources that can be regenerated, whereas non-renewable resources, such as minerals and oil, cannot rapidly be replaced by nature. In many cases, natural resources can be recycled or reused. We discussed how the cost of natural resources limits how natural resources are used. Various natural resource alternatives were described, and the impact they have on natural resources were discussed. Finally, the notion of sustainability of natural resources was explained. The sustainable use of natural resources is vital for the survival of the planet. Fill in the correct word to complete the sentence. Good luck, and let's get started. Number 1. Unnatural is something we use from the environment. Number 2. A resource cannot be replenished readily by nature. Number 3. Such as copper and iron are non-renewable resources. Number 4. Solar energy and wind are resources. Number 5. When overused, renewable resources can become Number 6. Coal and oil are examples of fuels. Number 7. Is the act of reprocessing materials into new products. Number 8. Involves using a resource over and over again in its same form. Number 9. If the of a natural resource becomes too high, it will be used less. And number 10. Resource involves maintaining natural resources and not exhausting them.